what I realised? Caitlyn Jenner used to be Kim Kardashian's stepdad. What? I was just at the dentist the other day and they had a 10-year-old copy of OK magazine on the table. Why didn't nobody tell me? But you know something else I realised? No one knows the basics of how our parliamentary system works, and as a result, we're going to be teaching fully grown adults, like they're Spanish migrants in an ESL class, about the Senate. F*** me. Look, the reason I'm doing this, and I hope to God this doesn't become a series, because doing just one made me realise, oh, so that's why my civics teacher in high school was an alcoholic. But after the election, you saw the Greens go, hey, this is my Larissa Waters impression. We went backwards in our vote share, got obliterated in the lower house, but it was the vindication. The election was the vindication because we got balance of power in the Senate. Yes! That's what we'll put on our emails to make sure everyone in the country who looks exactly like our sole surviving lower house member donates $20. And we won't mention that the only reason that we have balance of power is because Labor slaughtered the rest of the crossbench. Turning slaughter into wine. I mean, yeah, it's a cope, but the Greens still are powerful in the only way that they're ever powerful, which is, oh, the Greens vote actually matters in the Senate. What a shame. They seem to have forgotten that after the big earrings cult blindly followed Max Chandler Mather's nasally plan to become the new Labor Party in just 18 years. Fucking hilarious. He seriously thought he was going to be Prime Minister one day, and Maxi? This strategy seemed to mostly be focused on explaining how the preferential voting system works. You notice that's all they ever do on TikTok. Them pretending to be the AEC does way better than their original content of explaining their policy fantasies with a big fucking toothbrush. That's the level of intellect you're dealing with, the Greens. Prop comics. They seem to have convinced themselves, because of the clicks they get on their AEC-like videos, that, hey, if we just explain the really obvious point that everyone knows, we'll win like 150 seats. Nope. You forgot to factor in that most people hate you other than agoraphobic, chronically online psychos. That's not enough to clinch a lower house seat in our preferential voting system, fortunately, and as such, all of a sudden, for some reason, Greens run 12% of votes, so why not they get 12% of seats? Oh, you know you're going to get lots of hot takes when the Twitter user's bio is. You ready for this? Neurospicy. Oh, that is spicy. But it isn't just Twitter addicts spooking the 12% line. Christine Milne, oh wait, so it is just Twitter addicts. But Twitter addict, who was a former Greens leader, argued the same thing after the election. Christine, don't you have anything better to do? And when I thought about it for a nanosecond, I realised probably not. The gist of the argument, though, is because they do well in proportional voting, the electoral system should change to suit them. Okay, here's my response to that. No. We have one of the best electoral systems in the world, and they want to trade that in for one of the most dysfunctional electoral systems in the world, purely to give Max Chandler Mather's ex-staffers a job. Oh, what a deal for Australia, eh? I know most of you already know this, and I feel like I'm patronising you by saying it, but again, you might not know it, and if you don't, well, I hope you die in a car crash before the next election, because you shouldn't be voting. Wait, that's too far. Just your mum. But in case you don't, if no candidate receives more than 50% of first preference votes, so you can tune out of this part of the video if you're in a National Party seat. Yay, Mr. 52. Usually what happens is the candidate with the fewest first preference votes gets eliminated. Let's call this hypothetical candidate Candidate A, or Trumpeter Patriots candidate for short. The ballot counters strike out this KFC assistant manager. Look, I am sorry, but that guy was by no means the best Trumpeter Patriots candidate to make fun of. There's too much choice. He's an appetizer. Let's have a look at the mains. Come on, as if she's not a former crackhead. Candidate for cook? More like candidate for cook. Is this man's chin being held together by his beard? I don't know if this guy has eyes. Surely this woman wasn't even running. They just lifted a missing persons file from the 80s. And this is the guy that did her in. Super Mario. He's wearing a fake moustache. Holy shit. We just looked up who he is. He's Clive Palmer's nephew. Look at him. He's even got the face of, yeah, I'm getting away with it. That's it, I'm selling that as a limited edition shirt. Just that guy's face, because that is a crime that he wasn't the face of Trumpeter Patriots. They should have put him up with the Obama colours. Hope. Anyway, that candidate's votes then get distributed to all the other candidates, and they keep doing this, eliminating each successive least popular candidate until someone gets to 50% of the vote, and that's awesome, mainly because it's really effective at making sure c***s like the
Hello, my name is Mr. Snrub. I say we invest that money back in the nuclear plant.
Keeps him out. That solves a problem that plagues virtually every other democracy on Earth, which is that guy rocks up with his support base.
I like the way Snrub thinks.
And they get in because, well, our country was set up in the 1700s, and so our concept of democracy is purely who gets the most votes on the day. No one ever thought that anyone would be running for parliament as a joke.
thought it to be a serious matter for serious people who wear wigs. So it's good to see that at least that part of the tradition has endured.
Preferential voting is the updated version of first past the post. It's the Windows XP to the Windows 95, while proportional voting is the buggy Windows Vista. Newer and shitter. Preferential voting is the only system that not only filters out all the nutbags, it does so in a way that is sort of a double dose of democracy, as it basically forces the entire community to come to a serious consensus of who they can generally tolerate to represent them. And so, as a result, this system produces way more level-headed, sane MPs, as you have to appeal to the entire electorate as opposed to turbocharging a niche of freaks. And so naturally, the freaks want to upgrade to Windows Vista. They're hard at work now, populating social media with their new line that preferential voting isn't actually representative. I mean, how could anyone possibly think that these people are not representative of the wider community? Using the Greens' evergreen argument of insert European country does it, but you'll notice that the country that the Greens insert changes really fucking fast all the time. And that's because Belgium actually has proportional vote. Oh, they nearly went 2 years without forming government. Well, Italy recently had a government that fell apart after a year and a half. Spain does it well, and no, they don't. They really don't. Netherlands, nothing ever goes wrong in the What's happening in Tasmania right now? They've got a system similar to this. All parliaments with this style of system are in a near constant state of chaos and collapse, and the reason for that is serious parliamentarians are forced to form coalitions with psychos, and like how you wouldn't want to have to do your job with the woman with Tourette's on the bus, that's what most democracies are. Her with the deciding vote, permanently. This is why Israel's so fucked. It's because Bibi was forced to join in a coalition with the Torah bashers. This is why you have Gaza now. I can guarantee you for a fact that if Israel didn't have proportional representation, Gaza would be nothing like it is now, and yet you have the party that permanently moralizes with insane accusations like Gaza's actually Labor's fault. The Australian Labor Party's fault? Yeah. While also pushing for the system that made Gaza the fucking rubble pancake it is today. I'm telling you, whenever you think about the Greens' arguments for too long, you feel like you need to get your brain out of your head and soak it in bleach for a while, because it is just pure insanity. Insanity based off of nothing but immediate self-interest, and in this instance, it's particularly stupid because... Hey, stop it! I made a special house for you to ruin. It's over there. Ooh. You have proportional representation. That's how the Senate works. It's why the Senate doesn't work. And yet all the nuts want two nut houses. As I'm sure you know, the Senate consists of 76 seats. Each state gets 12 senators, and the Australian Capital Territory and Northern Territory get 2. No, they don't deserve any more. They are representing scum. The overseas territories of Australia, like Norfolk Island and that one island with a lot of crabs. Even more crabs when I'm on my annual sex tourism spree, am I right? They're represented by the senators for the ACT and the Northern Territory. So one of them is, this is true, a senator for the crab people. What a job. As the Senate is the upper house of Parliament, they have different powers to the House of Representatives. Any bill that is passed by the House of Representatives requires a majority of senators to vote for it, in addition to the majority of members from the lower house. The Senate also cannot pass or amend bills concerning taxation or expenditure, but they can reject or defer them. But if you look at the composition of the Senate throughout history, you will notice that small parties and independents have always formed a sizable chunk of the Senate. That's not a coincidence. Proportional voting was introduced in 1948 because it gave significant opposition parties and independents a better chance of being represented in Parliament. The logic was that they would presumably ensure bills go through heavy scrutiny from senators of different political leanings before being passed. And that sounds great. That sounds healthy for democracy. But again, that was because people in the 40s seem to have made the grave error of thinking that one day the world wouldn't be populated with people that stare at magic voodoo boxes that make them go schizophrenic. I wish they didn't give the Senate any teeth. They should have followed the model of the House of Lords in England. So instead of it being populated with a bunch of scummy opportunists blocking vital legislation for bragging points on TikTok, it's just filled with a bunch of funny, harmless 90-year-olds in top hats, basically coming in to do a senior citizens equivalent of that kindergarten show and tell thing you had to do.
I've gotten into the hobby of bird watching recently. It's rather fascinating. Well, it's more time consuming than fascinating, really.
That's their upper house. How much better is that than blocking reforms to the Reserve Bank? That's what the Senate soon became. Block Party. The most egregious example, of course, is what they did to Gough. The coalition controlled the Senate in his day, and they blocked several spending bills the Whitlam Labor government tried to pass. See more about it in my mining tax video, but the Senate blocking these bills led to a full-blown constitutional crisis that compelled the Governor-General, who was in no way influenced by the mining companies and foreign interests, of course, to sack Whitlam. And this is what all the Instagram crowd who get it want. A double layer of that shit. Basically because cuck factories like the Australia Institute and their cronies told them this is a good thing. It's not. These parliaments are unstable as fuck. In fact, their version of stability is just permanent gridlock. We have permanent gridlock at home, doing exactly what the Australia Institute claims is the good thing minority governments supposedly do, which is a counterbalance against the evil two-party duopoly, which really, when you really look at it, there's no conspiracy. The duopoly is a result of our system asking the public, rightfully so. Yeah? That one?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Okay, I guess I can live with having a man whose brain obviously hasn't melted.
That's the real reason major parties exist. It's a reflection of a broad base of society as opposed to a tiny fringe, and yet the tiny fringe seem to think that them being overrepresented is somehow more democratic. The other reason for why our voting system rules is because mandatory voting, what a beautiful thing. Instead of countries like France, the UK, the US, where only about 1/2 to 2/3 of the population don't vote, that means most normal human beings that don't know or don't care about politics don't show up. So right off the mark, you have normal human beings being outnumbered by c***s who rock up with the bill and tri-corner hat. And there's now concrete data that suggests that the based voters are far more likely to vote than the simp matrix voters. That's why most Western nations now are plagued with some try-hard version of the MAGA movement, whereas here, you had Jacinta Price say once.
We can make Australia great again, that we can.
Okay, she's just fucked the election for us with one comment, and the party's gone as well. Well, it was a good 80 years. Thanks, Jacinta. The UK, on the other hand, is barely holding back Nigel Farage's Reform Party. In France, basically every party that wasn't the National Rally had to rally together and avoid competing against each other in certain marginal electorates to ensure the National Rally couldn't win a majority. The Alternative for Germany party, whose members repeatedly got in trouble for using Nazi slogans and defending Nazis. That's how basically Germany's opposition party. But hey, proportional voting represents the will of the people. Too bad, as Osho once put so eloquently,
government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
According to this theory, it's the will of the people when mean politicians with 30% of the vote get to ruin everything for the other 70% that didn't want them. Most pollsters found that the coalition held the greatest share of primary votes right up until the actual election itself. So let's say the pollsters were right and the coalition had the largest vote share without having an outright majority. With the help of One Nation and Fatty McFuckhead's latest employment project for people who belong on a register for sex offenders, they would have got past the line in a proportional voting system. This is the system the Greens and the Australia Institute are pushing for because worth it as long as Adam Bant keeps Melbourne, am I right? This is why I hate the Greens, the crossbench, the so-called independents. The moment things don't go their way, they churn out lie after lie to mask their own incompetence and inability to galvanise their voter base to the point that they'll start attacking one of the most balanced, stable systems of government on earth, not because it's less democratic, but because it rightfully kept them out. Labor has been fucked repeatedly in the polls over the last 80 years. There are absolutely elections that they would have won under this system, but they didn't cry for it to be changed to it because unlike these charlatans, they didn't think winning a few extra seats sometimes is worth the exchange of endless constitutional crises. In 2019, Labor didn't argue preference deals were cooked when Scott Morrison shook hands with Clive Palmer. About the only person in Australia that would shake his hand. The Greens didn't argue that preference deals were cooked when preference deals won them 3 lower house seats. They only started whining when it lost them 3 lower house seats, which I would argue is a result of your primary vote percentage going backwards due to your own base realising you are a gaggle of opportunists and low-functioning narcissists who not only delude themselves into thinking that a clear electoral defeat is a thumping victory, but are insane enough to simultaneously deny that it's a defeat while giving the game away that deep down they know they got hammered as they're asking for the entire system to change for them. What an awful mentality that I hope spawns many more electoral defeats. Awfully sorry, Greens, but in our system, rightfully, if you want to be an elected representative, you have to represent the electorate, not peddle your crap insular worldview. If you want to do that, become TikTokers. Oh wait, you basically are now. And so am I. That's why Uncle Geordie's needs you to buy that limited edition shirt. And it is limited, so if we run out, buy yourself a Kevin27 shirt instead, because I'm telling you, that is one of the most popular shirts we've ever done, and a small proceed of it does not go to Kevin Rudd. You've got enough money. Fuck you, I'm profiting off your fame.